All right, and how many people were able to do the homework? All of it. Very nice. All right, so
well, with one caveat, you couldn't do it in past though.
that's okay. We'll get to that. So there are a couple things about this homework that the new Selenium IDE makes actually more difficult than if you would have tried to do it a year ago. Partially because Selenium IDE has become so sensitive to every interaction with the browser, it sometimes records too many actions. So, and I'll give you an example in a second, where you perform one action, and this is just simply to select a job title from the drop-down, but it actually records 3 or 4 different steps for just one motion. Having said that, it's very important that when you go through your script, you not only debug and make sure that it runs, but you also think about every single line in your code to make sure that you actually need it and that you know what it does, and that it's not trash, so to speak. It's not something extra that's polluting your code. The point is to write elegant code. And I mean, obviously this is IDE, this is not like Java or Python, but eventually you will go towards a language. And the same rule applies with any language. You shouldn't have lines of code that lead nowhere and do nothing. Just take up space and pollute everything. Especially in a language such as Java, extra lines of code mean you're using up more memory than you should be, you're holding on to things. So you're actually, it can create memory leaks, and that can be a very big problem. So having said that, let me demonstrate what I'm talking about. We are going to go over how to debug in just a little bit. Until that happens, just bear with me. Okay, so here's my script. Let's pretend I'm recording directly from this point, just so you guys can see what's happening. I'm going to go over here, click an edit button. So how many actions is that? 1, right? And then I'm going to select a new job description for my person, job title for my person. How many actions is that?
3.
No, how many actions is that in terms of you think?
Click and then select.
I just think it's 1. You select, right? I'm going to go and make another selection over here. So as far as I'm concerned, I just performed 3 actions. That's what I think happened. But when I go over here, well, let's disregard these few lines. These lines you can disregard. But other than that, how many did it record? That doesn't look like 3 by any accounting. It doesn't look like 3. And even if you were to say that selecting from a drop-down is 2 actions, which is reasonable, you're clicking and then you're selecting, that still would have 5, right? But it got 7. So something is happening here that is extra, right? Something that we don't necessarily need. And that's where you come in. You have to figure out what needs to stay and what needs to go. Now, if I try to play this back, this will play back. There's no errors in here. It's all normal code. It will all pass. It will all be green. But it's too many actions, too many commands. So what do you think? Which commands are extra, are not necessary?
Click.
Okay, so there's a lot of clicking here, a lot of clicking happening. The first line, do we need to keep that?
Yeah.
First line we need to keep. That's actually the action I performed and intended to record. How can you tell that's actually an action I want to keep? What's the clue?
It says button edit job.
Yeah, button edit job. So that tells you, okay, that's that edit button that I clicked in order to enter information. Okay, what about the next job? I mean the next line, excuse me.
Looks pretty weird.
It's a what?
You can delete it.
But what's kind of the clue here that you might not need it?
Combo box.
I don't remember performing that action. I don't remember specifically going to the control and going click, right? I just remember going select, right? So if I delete it, it should be okay. Let me actually leave the first line. So the first line actually tells my browser where to go. So we're gonna leave it there. So this one I can delete. What about this weird thing? What is this?
What is this green triangle? Yes, I guess.
Huh?
What is this green triangle appeared in a second?
I will actually explain it. This is the next thing we're going to go over. So that's why I said we're going to go over debugging in a second. Just bear with my little shortcuts for now. I know everyone's curious. So what about this next guy? What is this? Do you even remember clicking anything that's like that? What's option job 006?
That's the value of the actual item in the list.
Isn't that what we're doing here?
I think, well, if you go into the actual table, into the database,
Okay.
job 006 is the value, the actual value.
Okay.
CFL.
That
That's
option.
fine. All right. So we figured out what it is, but isn't that what we're doing here?
But isn't that more direct and more appropriate?
But I thought that's what we're doing here.
You're the teacher.
No, but that doesn't matter. What does this command do? I'm not the teacher. You're the teacher. Teach us. What does this command do? What does it say it does?
You're selecting a specific.
You're selecting from this control
That value.
this specific label. And then what does this do?
Verify.
It
maybe.
clicks the label? Wait. Why?
I don't know.
So it's basically two commands doing the same thing. Right? Do you agree? Do you really need both? Do you really need both?
No.
Should you go with the relative value or the absolute value?
Here's what I'm gonna do. Actually that didn't work the way I wanted it to. Hold on a second. One second. Made it too big. Yeah, never mind. Sometimes it gives us weird little box things that it doesn't do. Let's put it this way. It's really a matter of your own preference. To me, this, when you use value, is not a very good way to locate something, because value is actually the text. Does that make sense?
Right.
To me, this makes more sense because if for whatever reason I insert something above or I insert something below, the label will remain the same. And if the actual label changes, then that's actually an error I want to catch. You know what I mean? Like if somebody actually uses this and a user goes in and changes CFO to CFFFFFO, right? That they make a mistake or they, screw something up and delete the C, so it just says fo, right? I still won't know. I'll still be clicking this. So it's a matter of preference. You will learn the more we go through this class, the further we move towards week 10, that the more knowledge you gain, the more correct solutions there are. So after week 4, you will find that one problem will have 2, 3 solutions. And after week 7, you'll find that one problem has 6, 7 solutions. And towards week 10, you'll find that there's an n number of solutions to one single problem. So in this case, it is really a matter of the situation. In this situation, this locator will actually serve as a part of the test. In my opinion. Again, it doesn't have to be the right opinion. Because in this case, I actually do want to select something that says CFO. I actually do care about the label. Here, my label is not preserved. So if the label changes and it gets broken, I will still be selecting the option. Or alternately, if I decide to delete that label and then re-add it again, which is fine, it will still be able to find it, but this thing will not find it at all because this pointer in the database went away, is what you said, right? It's a database So it's up to you. But to me, since this accomplishes two different things, kind of makes more sense to me. But yeah. In either case, regardless of your preference, do you guys all agree that doing the same thing twice in the script kind of doesn't make too much sense? So you can use your own preference based on what I just kind of babbled about for the past 5 minutes, and delete one. You just get to one of those lines. Okay?
Is there a way to control the Selenium settings where it will not
How
record
sensitive it is?
something?
Not at this point. Maybe they'll add it at some point, but at this point it just kind of does whatever it wants to, and you have to use your eyes and logic to figure out what's too much, what's not enough. And sometimes it actually will skip. And some of you last class noticed that you are typing in login and password and it doesn't record the login. Just records the password field. So you do have to use your eyes, and the more you learn about commands, the more you're going to be able to keep track. So I'm going to execute this guy. Now, same thing here. It's actually treating select with these 3 different commands. So this would be the same kind of scenario. Obviously, you would get rid of this, and then you have to choose which one you want to keep from there. So in the end, you will have to trim down your code from 7 lines to 3. Well, don't count this line. That actually opens your browser. Make sense? Now, for those of you who are worried, oh, will it still work? Not that you guys are worried, but let me mess with this a little bit. So if I do this, see, still runs. Did it run? No, sorry. One more time. Right? Still ran?
Was the select the status?
Yeah, you're right. Actually, that brings me to my homework, doesn't it? Okay, so in the homework, I actually told you that this might happen, right? That what happens is the values inside this box rely on your selection inside this box. You guys remember the hint in the homework? Did you guys all scroll down to the bottom? There's like a little hint section. Okay, and what did I tell you have to do? What did you have to do?
Click and wait.
You have to wait,
Yeah.
right? You have to wait. What are we waiting for?
The page to reload. The selection to change.
Not a page to reload. The page is not going to reload. Let's look at it one more time. Let's look at it. I'm going to put away Selenium IDE, and I'm going to select anything. And then what happens? What happens to the mouse? Did you see it? It's very quick. What happens to my mouse? It goes into a circle, right? It's thinking, right? It's thinking. That means we need to give it time to think. Additionally, let's select something over here. I'm going to select this guy. When I change something here, what happens to the box on the bottom? It either nulls out, right? Either nulls out and goes to nothing, or it selects something, but it changes, the value changes. So depending on what you selected in the top box, the bottom box gets impacted, right? So it's waiting for those values to be pulled from the database. That's what's happening in the background. But the page did not reload. Did you see anything else on the page change besides just that little portion? No. So that's actually Ajax, JavaScript, that's running asynchronously in the background. So the whole page is not reloading, it's just that little box that gets loaded with new values. So since click and wait stands for click and wait for page to load, can we use that here? Why not?
Not reloading the full page.
Exactly. If we use click and wait here, or even if we say select and wait, you can do that. Did you guys notice that everything you type in also has end wait? You can say select and wait. But what are you waiting for? Page to reload, and it's never going to reload, so it's going to fail. It's going to say, I waited 30 seconds, the page still didn't reload, fail, right? So that means you have to figure out what else you can be waiting for besides the page. And in this case, what are we waiting for? For those select options to appear, right? So that's why I asked everybody to do wait for text. We're waiting for that text to appear in that specific element. Now, there's two ways to do it. There's the, what's the word I'm looking for? The breakable way and the more durable way. Okay, couldn't think of a word for breakable. So it's durable and what's the opposite? What's the antonym? Come on, help me.
Soft.
Fragile.
Fragile, thank you, that's what I was looking for, right? So there's the fragile way and there's the durable way. The fragile way is when you simply right-click on this and you say assert text, right? Or verify text. And you're going to change it later to wait for text. Or you can actually go here and say wait for text immediately. It's up to you. But when you do that, and you look at what happens, you look at this value. Well, actually, that didn't work correctly. Ah, there we go. Now it should work. When you do that and you look at the value, what happened? What's actually inside the value column? Can you guys tell?
All of them.
It's all of them, right? So what's going to happen the next time somebody goes in and adds another type of employment status?
We'll fail it.
This whole line will fail because now the text no longer matches, right? So there is a way to work around that. There's a way to make it a little bit more durable, and that is to only wait for a snippet of that text, right? So we don't care what other options are above it, and we don't care what other options are below it. We just care that what we want to click, select, is there, right? That makes sense to everybody, right? So that's when we actually are going to come in with text matching. You guys remember I talked a little bit about text matching? So right now you guys don't know about text matching, or at least some of you do, but not from this class, right? But I'm just going to throw that out there. So right now, this particular way is a fragile way, and I'm aware of that. But if you know how to match text, and later on all of you will, you basically just do a simple substitution. I'm going to show you the simple substitution. Let's say in this case I want to select full-time. So what I would do is, I would delete all the text right before full-time and put a star. And then I would delete all the text that comes after full-time permanent and I would put a star. And star, most of you know, stands for everything, anything, from zero to infinity, right? Any combination of whatever. It stands for whatever, right? So basically, that's kind of your first introduction to pattern matching. When you want to isolate just a specific amount of text, and you don't care what's before and what's after, just as long as this thing is there, just put star star on both sides. That way you're protecting yourself. Once you get a little bit more sophisticated than you do with regular expressions, you're going to find more complex yet more specific ways to work with text. For now, this should be something that works for you. Okay? So that was the homework. The homework was debug, realize the difference between clicking and waiting, or simply waiting, or simply clicking, and just, yeah, have fun with it. Okay, so we talked about waiting for text, we talked about asterisks, we talked about cutting down commands so you don't have any extras. Make sure you go back to your homework and see that that works. There was one more thing to mention about this, and that is I love helping you guys, but if you're asking me for help, always remember to attach your whole HTML file, because screenshots don't really tell me much. Not only that, but sometimes it might seem to me like it's one cause, but it's actually something 3 lines above that messed you up in the first place. So just attach the whole HTML thing. Just save it, send it. It's a tiny little thing, quick to upload. I need to see the whole thing. And usually I'll just open it on my cell phone and look at it. So, second thing, you need to be able to follow the directions that I give in the homework very specifically. The reason is, well, first of all, you're QA, so you should be able to follow specifications. Second of all, this is a free software, free web application that we got 2 years ago, and there is no support team behind it, there's no development team fixing bugs, and there are lots of bugs. So basically you have to follow my breadcrumbs in order not to step into anything. There's lots of mines that go kaboom on you, and sometimes you get stack traces and sometimes you get all kinds of other weird stuff. So just follow breadcrumbs and don't select anything that I told you not to select, otherwise you might end up in trouble. So that's it. Any other questions about homework? Other than that? No?
Also, how to
Actually, I have
verify.
a question.
Yeah.
Why we use the command, let me find it, wait for text.
Anybody want to answer that?
I think we explained it last time, but just to refresh.
So I actually just explained it right now. But who wants to summarize in different words? Why did we put that thing in? Remember between selecting the job title and selecting the employment status, we put in that wait for text command. Why did we put it in? Okay, when I switched to the bigger homework, everybody started looking very confused. Remember this? These three lines? These three lines? Are these three lines in your homework? It's just easier to talk about this little snippet aside from the homework. So why did we add this middle line? Middle one. This guy.
Selection and the Dropbox can
Right, exactly. So that line, right? The one with the asterisk, the wait for text. Because the values in the box that happens to be below job title, they rely on the selection you make in the job title. So if you select CO, you get a different set of options than if you select senior tester, and different set of options if you select QA, different set of options if you select staff, right? They're always different. So they're going to be updating based on your original selection. You select one thing, they update. You select a different thing, they update. And any kind of updating requires time. Because what happens in the background is a request goes through the HTTP protocol for that information, and that information has to get searched in the database, and has to get sent back to your browser, right, as a post, and then your browser actually has to render it into HTML. So that's actually a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. You have to wait for it because it needs time to perform all of that. Right? You guys understand? Okay, I'm going to close this now. So last class, we started doing all kinds of practices, and there's one that we didn't finish, and I would like us to do that today to start. Okay, so let me explain something about the database behind this browser, behind this web application. When you create a new employee, and some of you have actually encountered it last week when we tried to record the practices, it generates a code for you. You guys remember that code for the employee generates? Well, what happens is a session goes into the database and says, give me the next ID that you have in your queue. And it serves it up. And when 4 people come in at the same time, it serves it up to 4 different people. And then whoever of those 4 people clicks the submit button first, that's whoever gets that ID. Everybody else gets the whole, I'm sorry, this is not a unique code. Yeah. It doesn't work. Error. So, I'm going to have you do something a little funky. Okay? In order to work around this problem. But the goal of this code is not to record or debug, but to learn how to store data. So a code is something that's generated different every single time. You cannot predict what it's going to be, right? You guys agree? So you want to be able to store it, because one of the ways that we can search by job title, by last name, by first name. We can also search by that ID. And our goal right now is to verify that a new employee added under a specific ID can then be searched. We are testing the searching functionality by ID. Everybody understands? So a new functionality was just made in our software, Orange HRM, and that is searching employees by their employee ID. And we're going to test that. Okay, so far so good? So what's going to be our kind of test case like? What's our test case? Well, no, I mean, that's very detailed, but let's do more like on a grand scale. We're going to create an employee, right? The employee is going to have a code that's randomly generated, given to them when we're creating, right? It's going to be assigned. We want to be able to store that code. You guys agree? Because that's what we're going to be searching for later.
ID, you mean ID?
Huh?
You mean ID, employee ID.
Yes, employee ID. It's actually called code.
Oh.
You will see it. I'm going to show it in a second. You want to store that code. I mean, you're going to store it into a thing, an entity called variable. So in programming or in coding or in scripting, whatever you want to call it, whenever you take a piece of data and you store it in memory, right? You leave yourself a little pointer to it, and that pointer has a name. Because you obviously are not going to remember the memory location in the computer. I mean, you don't speak bytecode, and you frankly do not remember things at that scale. You're going to give it something humanly readable and understandable. In this case, we're going to call our variable code, because that's what we're storing. And in fact, that's usually a good practice. If you're going to store something, give it something that's self-documenting, so it tells you what's inside. Make sense? So I'm going to store my age. I'm going to call the variable age. If I'm storing age for multiple people, I'm going to call my age Ellie's age. Something like that. So we're going to store the code. We're going to call it code. The variable is going to be called code. We are still going to remember it in our head, what we stored, because we're going to keep recording. Or we're going to write it down on a piece of paper. After we created our employee, we're going to search for that code that we either remembered or wrote down on a piece of paper. Because right now, we're still recording and our computer hasn't remembered it yet. We just told it that later on it will happen. Then, we're going to perform the search, verify that the correct person came back, and we're going to stop recording. Make sense? But that's only half of the operation. Now, we're going to have to go into our code and actually replace the value we hard-coded when we searched for the employee by the number we remembered or wrote down with the actual variable name. Does that make sense? So let me demo what I'm trying to say. All right, hold on. Log out. So I'm recording right now. This is what I want everybody to do. They're going to add an employee. They're going to remember this code. Now, I'm pretending to write this down, 8807. I'm pretending to write it down, but I'm also going to tell my script that my script has to write it down too for next time. I'm going to do this by saying right-click and store value. See how it says store value? And on the very right of that, it actually has the value. That means it's going to work. So I'm going to select store value. And it's going to say, well, what do you want to call your variable, right? Your little storage container, what do you want to call it? I'm going to say, I want to call it code. Make sense to everybody so far? Okay. I'm going to press the OK button, and I'm just going to keep on going. Meanwhile, it's also in my brain, right? I'm also remembering 8807. So I'm going to put my last name. I'm going to put my first name. And then I'm going to click Save. And somebody's recording together with me. Awesome. All right, hold on. And somebody's still recording together with me. Stop it. All right, so 8812 is my number. All right. After this, I see that my employee got created. I'm going to go to employee list. So 8812. It wasn't 887. 8812 is what worked. And I'm going to say search by employee ID. And I'm going to put 8812. And I'm going to say search. And when the record comes back, there should only be one, first of all. When it comes back, you're going to right-click on the person's name. And you're going to say assert text or verify text, right? They're similar. You guys remember the difference? One is a hard stop, one is a fail but keep going. You guys remember that? So assert means, oh, this is really bad, stop. And verify means, well, this is kind of bad. Let's put a little red mark, but we can keep going with the rest. So I'm going to say verify text. And then I can simply log out. That's all that this test case contains. And I'm going to stop recording. So, I don't know if you guys noticed, but when I wasn't able to submit my person, it gave me the error. What happened? What did I do? I stopped recording until I was able to get that successful page. And after I saw the successful page, I kept going. Make sense? So that's why I'm going to have you do something funky, because I know, as you can see, even when I was recording, people were doing it. When all the rest of you start doing it at the same time, you're going to run into conflicts. Just be patient. So again, this is what's going to happen. You're going to, give me 1 second. I'm going to do this. You're going to run through all those motions, get to this page, right? Fill in your values, first name and last name, and then you're going to click save, right? I'm going to click save. Oh, excuse me, my bad. Where's my name? Click save. And if it doesn't work, like it didn't now, see how it didn't work? Gave me a failure? Immediately, I'm going to go to my script and I'm going to say, oh, no, stop recording, stop recording. So I don't keep clicking and recording. So at this point, stop recording, and I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep saying, okay, one more time. And then I'm going to say save again. Because remember, I already recorded clicking the save button once, so I don't have to record that part. It's there. Oh, it worked. Okay, good, it worked. I'm going to see this page. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to say, all right, I'm ready to start recording again. Press the record button again, and then just keep going with your test case, okay? That way it's a little bit frustrating, but not as frustrating as start all over, start all over, start all over. So just stop recording after clicking the save button if you ran into an error. And then once you get the success page, start recording again. Make sense? All right, good. Just don't remember to stop and start. Don't just stop and then, ooh, success, keep going, and then, okay? Just remember to do both. Okay, so we're gonna do this in groups again. We're gonna do the first 2 rows as group 1 today, and you guys get to be group 2. So the first 2 rows can go and record. I'm gonna put the PowerPoint up, okay? So first 2 rows, please start recording. If you run into conflicts, do what I just showed. Stop recording, get a success, start recording, keep going. There's a step missing in between, but you're gonna have to click that add and play button. I'll add that in. And I'm gonna go over again of what a variable is, because I know some of you are hardcore programmers and know what it is and have been breathing it since you were 2, and for some people it's a completely new concept. So those of you who know what it is, just kind of chillax for a second. Okay. So this is your computer memory, right? This is RAM. Things are floating around. Everything is very groovy and happy. Unfortunately, every single little bit in the memory has this huge identification number, such as XAB01 yada yada G29012. As As a human, you can't really remember that. You guys agree? That would be kind of sucky if we had to remember something like this each time. So instead, we're going to treat it as a P.O. box in a post office, right? It's a box. And if you had to describe to somebody which box is yours, you would be like, the one that's for many, that's somewhere in the middle, kind of hard, right? That's why they all have numbers. The number on your P.O. box is your variable name. Same thing here, except instead of using numbers, we're going to use a word. And it's going to be just like a number on your P.O. box, or just like a number on your house, or just like your street name, right? Every street is kind of a location in the city, and we give it a human readable name, and that's the variable name. So the street's name is the variable name. In this case, code is a memory variable name. So it's a pointer to a specific location in your memory, or sometimes hard disk if it's a file. Make sense to everybody what a variable is? Okay, so when we say store code, our Selenium ID is going to say, okay, I'm storing it, I'm putting it in my own little storage container. When you want to use it later, what do you want to call it by? So I know what you want the next time that you want to use this value, right? Because it's a good thing to store things, but it's also good to be able to get them back out after you store them, right? It's that whole piggy bank thing, right? Store money in, but it's a good thing when you can get it back out, right? Same thing here. All right, so once you have your script, it should look similar to mine, more or less. You're going to notice that you stored the code here, but when you performed your search, you hard-coded the value, right? But that's okay, because now that we stopped recording, we're going to go and we're going to manually replace this number with the variable name. Except there's a little bit of a syntax that we have to put around it, okay? And the syntax is you're going to put a $sign, a curly bracket, then the actual variable name, and then a closing curly bracket. Why do we do that? Because when Selenium sees a word, it thinks, oh, text. And we have to say, no, 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 Selenium, this is not text. This is something special. This is a variable. Therefore, you're going to tell Selenium, look, it's a $sign in the curly bracket. Stop. That means you have to treat this differently, not just like text. It's something different. You have to take this next thing and replace it with a value you're storing for me, and then use it. Make sense to everybody? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this number, we're going to click on the line, go to where it says value, and instead of 8812, and you don't have to remember it anymore, if you wrote it down, you can scratch it out now. You're going to put $sign, curly brackets, and inside it you're going to put code. And you're done. Now you can debug. Okay, so everybody understands? Now, most of you, after the first time, will still get confused because when you're storing a value, you don't put anything special around it, right? You just say the name of the variable. But when you want to use what's inside that variable, you have to put the $sign curly bracket. Does that make sense to everybody? So when you store something in, you just give it a name. When you want to pull something out, that's when you tell Selenium, stop. This is not a word. This is a variable name. Treat it differently. Find it in your storage, replace the value, and then use it. Make sense? Okay. So that's what this $sign curly bracket is telling you. And, you know, the closing one too. Comment. First of all, what you're supposed to put around this guy is $sign curly bracket. That's my weird looking curly bracket. The name and the curly bracket. Okay, they're not round brackets or square brackets. They're curly. They're that thing. Second, when you are doing any kind of testing and or recording, never, ever, ever, ever allow it to remember your logins and passwords. Okay? It just messes you up. So if you already made that mistake, go ahead to your internet options, and it actually lets you select which password you want to delete independently. I'm sure all of you have a lot of passwords stored, so you don't want to clear all of them. But you can actually select a specific password you want to delete. So you might want to do that. Third, I know all of you are not done debugging yet, but I want to go over debugging in Selenium ID, how I'm setting these little icons, so that you guys can practice, okay? So let's pause for a second. I'm going to go over Selenium IDE, which is part of this lesson, and then you guys can continue with this. So for now, just pause. What you have done is what you have done. It's fine. All right. Okay, so one favor to ask. I know you guys are sharing knowledge and collaborating, but when I talk, please don't. There's a lot of you, and I have a tendency to lose my voice, and this class will suck if I can't talk, trust me. Okay, so this is your Selenium ID. This is what it looks like. Obviously, there are certain parts to this Selenium ID. You have your menu, you have your recording mechanism, you have your table/source view. The reason it's called table/source view is because you can literally view it either in the table form or in the HTML form, and I'll show that in a second. You also have your test case list view. Now, it is possible to create test suites in Selenium IDE, but because we've only been working with one file at a time, we haven't really used that as much. But if you ever create a suite or you're working with multiple test cases, this is actually something that allows you to switch between them. And then of course you have your bottom portion, which is the log and your reference, UI element, rollup, all that good stuff. So first things first, you have your run buttons, and last class I did go over what they mean, right? So there's two run buttons. The one with a single rectangle plays only what you see on the screen. If you have more than one test case open and you click the one with multiple rectangles, that will actually play everything. Not just what you see, but every test case you have in that list. Then you have your test case list view. Now obviously, by default, it looks like a table, right? There are 3 columns, and every column, every row represents a specific command with inputs and expected outputs. And finally, when you run, whether it's successful or a failure, on the very bottom over there, you're also going to get yourself a little summary. So how many failed, how many ran. So it's not how many failed and how many passed. It's how many total were executed and how many out of them failed. All right. You guys should all be familiar with this, so I'm not going to talk you through it. What you probably don't know is that there's this awesome find button over here. Now the find button is really cool because sometimes you get a locator that is gibberish and you have no idea what it means, and frankly the test case is so long you can't really even guess what it means. Like, what is it clicking? I don't know. What you can do is use the find button to figure out what's going on. For example, I'm not really sure what this guy does. I don't know which one. Which one should I use here? Yeah, this one. I don't know. What is this? So what I can do is I can actually click it. That's a bad example. Hold on. Let me find a good example.
I think if you log out of the orange arc, if you get to the very first screen.
Yeah, but I was going to pick some kind of gibberish. Unfortunately, the first few commands are not gibberish.
Like submit buttons.
Okay, whatever. That's okay. Unfortunately, not a lot of gibberish in this code, but let's pretend that this locator was gibberish. Let's pretend it looks something like this. Ooh, that makes no sense, huh? What is this thing? What you can do is you can actually highlight it and watch on the left while I click the find button. Do you guys see that? So let's pretend that this locator didn't have something nicer. I could still select it and click the find button, and it would show me what this refers to. Now the find button actually has 2 purposes. One purpose is to help you find things. Another one is actually to help you debug, because sometimes you are going to use Firebug to create a locator, a better locator than the one Selenium ID provides for you. Or sometimes your Selenium ID won't be able to actually record a locator because it's just, for some reason, it's either hidden or it's just not clickable. It just won't give you the option to record it. So you actually go with Firebug, which is a tool we're going to download in a little bit, and you're going to grab it yourself. You're going to look at it and you're going to use Firebug to grab the locator. Everybody understands what I mean by locator now, right? Yes? Anything in this column. So in that case, when you paste it into your Selenium ID, you want to be able to test it. You want to say, does this locator actually work? And works the way that I expect it to. Instead of finding, maybe instead of finding this button, it's actually finding something else, right? You would be pretty frustrated. But by clicking the find button, you will be actually able to see, oh, okay, it is finding what I wanted to find. Or, oh, yeah, that's not a button, that's a whole table. That's bad, I need to work with it. So 2 things to use the find button for, to help you figure out where you are in the code, and also to help you debug locators that are coming in externally, right, from external sources. Okay, so let me switch this back to non-gibberish. Okay, so next, awesome find button. Okay, now we also have some other colors that you guys might not have seen. There is this context menu. I'm just going to pop everything on the board. There is this thing called a context menu in your Selenium ID, and you can access it by right-clicking. So everybody can right-click on their Selenium ID right now, and you will see that there are several familiar options: copy, cut, paste. But there's also insert command and insert new comment. You guys see that? So the command you guys already know how to use. We did that last week, right? But what about a comment? So what's a comment? It's just a way to document something, right, in your code. So let's say that I want to document for myself what this specific action does. I can right-click on it and I can say add comment. And now a comment is a little bit different than a command because it actually only gives you one field. Even if you try to put something in the target and value, they're not going to let you. They're not really grayed out, but they're uneditable. So you can't click inside them. And once you type something in, excuse me, it's actually going to come out pink or purplish pink. So that's how you know something is a comment. Okay. Now, this is a table source view, and I keep saying that. But we've only been looking at the table so far. Let's take a look at what the source looks like. All right, you can switch over, and that's source. What is this? It's HTML. And if I do a little bit of scrolling, I'm going to be able to see my comment. You guys see the comment? Okay. So in order to make a comment, essentially what it does is it puts a caret, puts an exclamation mark, and then dash dash. All right? Then whatever text you want to put in here, it's going to conclude it by another dash dash and a closing caret, like this. That's how you make a comment. All right? And anything you put inside is going to be pinked out and is going to be considered not part of the code. Okay? So whatever, right? Whatever. When you switch back, you're going to see something funky looking, but it's not going to be part of the code. So similarly, if I wanted to comment out a line of code, there is no graceful way to do it. There's no way to just select a line and say, please comment it out for me, unfortunately. But there is a fake it way to do it. So let's say that I wanted to comment out, what's a good thing to comment out? This assert title over here, right? I wanted to comment it out. The trick is to comment out the entire row, not one cell, because that's going to mess things up. The entire row. And the row, what's the HTML tag for a table row? TR, table row, right? Whereas TD stands for table data. Good. So we want to comment out the whole row, so I would actually go over here and I have 2 options. I can either put a little opening caret exclamation mark dash dash right above the TR, and then of course close by putting dash dash closing caret after, right? I can do this kind of comment, and then when I go here, I'm gonna see, oh, okay, it's commented it out. All right? Or for those of you who are a little bit lazier, and this is fine, that's kind of me, basically, you can actually use the tag itself. Just when you remove your comment later, don't remember not to delete too much. You can actually use the tag itself and say, okay, I'm gonna put the exclamation mark inside it, dash dash, and then, okay, I'm gonna put dash dash inside it. See? The pattern is still the same. You guys see that the pattern is still the same? So it's up to you how you want to comment. But the point is that when you switch over here, again, you're gonna get a comment. Okay? So that's how you can comment things out. Now, when I was showing homework, you guys noticed me magically place triangles and bars onto my code, right? Well, I was actually doing it with the shortcuts from the context menu. Again, let me right-click. As you can see, there are shortcuts listed. We've already used some of them, Control-C, Control-V, Control-X, right? We're used to all of that. But on the very bottom, there's also B, S, and X. Okay, B stands for breakpoint. Who knows what a breakpoint is? The point at which you what? Take a break. Exactly. So actually, it's a little funkier than that. It's actually going to stop executing before it reaches that line. Not on the line, but before it. So if you're going to set a breakpoint over here, it will verify the text, but it won't select the frame, right? Or you can set a starting point, a start point. So if I don't want to execute my script from the very top, if I want to start executing from here, for example, I can say, oh, okay, start from here and say S. Select this line and select S. Now, starting point does work like it sounds. The line that you put the starting point on, that's the line that gets executed, okay? So breakpoint is the line before that's going to be the last one. Starting point is the line. It's a little bit of difference. Question. Actually, no. Go ahead. Everybody set a breakpoint. Anywhere. Set a breakpoint. How do you set a breakpoint? Select the line and you can either right click or you can do what? B. So I really encourage you to learn shortcuts because it just kind of makes you look like you're more comfortable using things. So just do B. Okay, now go to a different line. Set another breakpoint. What do you think? Is there a maximum number of breakpoints you can set? What's the maximum?
The number of lines.
Right, this is the number of lines. You can technically set a breakpoint at every line. What about starting points? Go ahead and try to set some starting points. How many can you set?
One.
Does that make sense? It makes sense, right? You can only start once. All right, so you've set all these nice breakpoints and start points. How do you remove them?
Do the same thing. Do the same thing.
You basically do the same thing again. You do the same thing twice. So if you want to remove a start point, you select the same line with a start point and press S. It goes away. And to remove the breakpoints, you select B. And it's just B, B. Okay, make sense? All right, now how does it work in terms of execution? What's going to happen is when I set a breakpoint, let me just set a few over here. If I press play and I have 3 breakpoints, what's going to happen? It's going to stop at the first one. So let's go and see how it works. It's going to run and it's going to stop right before executing the first one. So now I'm kind of in this limbo. And if you take a look at my play button, it changed, right? It no longer, I'm sorry, at my pause button, it changed. It now looks kind of like a half pause, half play. What this means is if I press it again, it's going to run to the next breakpoint, right? So it's kind of like a little resume. I'm going to click it again, and it goes to my next breakpoint. Now, what if I don't want to run to my next breakpoint? What if I just want to run next line? How do I do that? There's this blue arrow, and if you click it once, it just executes one line. You guys see that? And if you click it again, one more line. And if you click it again, one more line. So you can actually step through your script one line at a time until you're either bored or done. And you can, Now, okay, good. So I've been pressing through it, and now I just want to go all the way to the end. How do I do that? Just say resume, right? It runs all the way to the end. And in my case, it fails. Right in the middle. Which is fine. Alright, so that's how you essentially debug. Okay, so I got to this page and I know there's an error here. How do I debug just this place? I don't want to keep going from the beginning because every time I run from the beginning, I create a new person, right? I don't want to keep creating new people. I just want to debug this one little bit of code. How do I do that? Exactly. Very good. So I would actually manually get to this point on the page, right? I would set a new starting point. So I would say, okay, well, this is going to be my new starting point. And then I can just set myself a breakpoint, right? I'm going to say, I'm not really sure why it's not working, but I'm going to set my breakpoint right over here. Okay? And I can just now keep playing my script over and over until it works, making changes, and it's going to only run these few lines. So as you can see, it's only running these few lines. Okay, one more time. Okay, one more time. Make sense to everybody? So, by the way, it's failing because apparently I grabbed somebody else's number. Yeah, it's fine. That's the nature of this code, right? If there's too many people running it, it's going to fail. Go home, it's going to work. This exercise wasn't designed for in class. It was designed for home, but... All right, did that make sense to everybody? Yes? All right. Oh, and one more thing. We forgot one last shortcut. So there's also X, right? You can execute any one line of this code by pressing X. So instead of relying on this go through, let me just put my browser behind. If I wanted to verify that this line works, the one that says log out, right? Or this one, the one that says select frame up, and nothing else, I don't have to run to this line. I can just double click on it. Doo-doo. See how it's green? It just ran. Doo-doo. Or if I want to verify that log out works, I can double click on it. Doo-doo. And it's going to log out. You guys saw that? Now technically, I can also say X, right? And it's going to execute it. But for me, it's easier to double click. So you guys choose what you're comfortable with, double clicking or X. But either one does the same thing. Executes one line. And it looks like my code is a little bit messed up somewhere. Yeah, like I said, even I have my script messed up. It's unfortunately not something you can debug in class because there's so many people. It's constantly failing. Because every time your script tries to create an employee, and everybody else is also trying to create an employee, and they all get the same number.
It doesn't match.
So it always never matches. So yeah. So you guys, let me just repeat something. When we were recording, we were going a lot slower than we were playing back our script. That means when we're playing back our scripts all together, there's a lot more possibility of us conflicting and getting the same number. So don't try to debug your script here, okay? The point of this script was not to get you to debug it completely, but to learn how to store and retrieve data. And I think we accomplished that. You have an example for your homework tonight. Go home and debug it at home, okay? One more thing. Nobody asked me this either. I'm very surprised. I showed you the homework solution, right? I actually have it posted. Nobody wants to actually have it to look at? So there's actually in day one an exercise folder. Did you guys try accessing it? Exactly. It has a password on it. So if you click on it, it opens eventually. Let's see, what is this? It's a
Password.
no, it's summer. Summer, and the password is pass W0RD. I'll write it on the board. But once you do that, it lets you log in. So, login is summer, and the password is password. Okay, that's a 0. All lowercase except for that one little bit. Okay.
So every week exercise has the same password?
No. And it also has a different login. How's that?
Is that a capital S?
No, they're all lowercase. My S's look a little bigger usually. All lowercase except for that 0.
That's the exercise folder. The top of
The exercise folder. You click on it, it asks you for authentication. Every week you're going to get a new login, a new password, all the way until week 7, I believe. And after that, you're on your own. I just force you through the first half of the class. After that, it's up to you. Okay, so as you can see, you actually have solutions not just to the homework, but to everything else we did in the first week and today, right? You even have your stored value solution. Okay, so when you go home, you debug what we did in class, you can compare it to the solution here. Good? All right, everybody's very happy.